And we are live. Hello, everyone. I'm Jessper Maquindang. If you're here to build a stronger team and a more effective company culture, you're in the right place. In each episode, we have guests who share tips, strategies, and insights to help you and your people thrive. And I'm very excited to introduce today's guest. Sandi Ballard is a DISC certified business coach, author, and speaker who helps leaders and teams communicate better, boost productivity, and build stronger workplace cultures. She works with business owners to reduce turnover, strengthen connection, and elevate leadership through practical communication strategies. An author of 4 books, Sandi has spoken at conferences across the United States, delivering high energy, no BS insights on leadership, goal setting, and growth. Let's welcome Sandi Ballard. Sandi, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for asking me to be on here. This is great.
Absolutely. Very honored. And looking at today's topic, very excited. And it's that most business problems are not strategy problems, they're communication problems. Very, very interesting. Let's start with a deeper dive into the research. Sandi, can you share some statistics related to the work you're doing?
Well, I do love statistics. Miscommunication costs United States businesses $37 billion a year. Billion with a B. Isn't that crazy? And it's really just because there's communication or confusion, missed deadlines. You're doing work over and over again, upset customers, conflict, and these are the hidden things that you don't track. Most business owners are not going to track. They might look into, well, okay, people are working overtime or they're working extra or they're having to redo something, and a lot of times the staff might hide that from you as to how many times they're reworking things. So it's just it's one of those statistics, or it's one of those things that you just can't really track easily.
That's such an important point. And I do have some statistics to share as well, but before I do, was there any more research you'd like to share on your end?
Well, it's like on the flip side of that, when teams are stronger and communicate more effectively, you're about, because people are always concerned about turnover and really hiring good people. It's like, well, people don't leave jobs. They usually leave the leadership. And if you have strong communication, better expectations, priorities, deliverables, that turnover is going to reduce approximately 50%.
Sandi, that is an excellent point. And there's some research that I want to share from Gallup, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this. And according to Gallup, they discovered that only 7% of employees strongly agree that communication in their organization is accurate, open, and timely. Sandi, your thoughts?
Did you say 7?
7%.
Well, that's because they're not facing the truth. They're not looking in the mirror that they're probably the problem. And, with that, it's like, that's why I work with the leaders first to get them to understand that their communication and the staff, everyone's communication. I don't care how many staff you have, if it's, down to the basic, housekeeping up to, a research scientist. It's like you need to be able to communicate effectively with everyone. And if you're not owning your own, then how can you lead properly so people will appreciate you and want to stay? So
exactly.
7%. I didn't know that one. I'm going to write that one down. That's sad.
And that was from Gallup. And there was another piece of research I wanted to share with you, and this one's from Career Trainer, and wanted to get your thoughts on this one. And it's, according to Career Trainer, 53% of employees say they would leave a job due to poor communication from leadership. Your thoughts, Sandi?
Absolutely. What does everybody say now? 100%. 100%, that 53%. Why wouldn't you leave? If you are constantly frustrated with the owner or your direct report manager, or even, vice versa, it's like if you can't get your team to listen to you, there's always frustration going both ways. And that's the thing, is people just need to own their own communication. You need to listen to yourself. And most people just think it's I want to say their way or the highway. Everybody thinks they communicate the most effectively. It's like, oh, well, this is just how I talk. Or on the other side with the DISC assessment that I train, some people, the S's and C's, tend to be a little harder or a little more reluctant to speak up and ask for more communication.
Excellent point. And Sandi, there was one more piece of research that I wanted to share, but before I do, were there any statistics you'd like to share on your side?
I think that was it. It's like really just the confusion, and I felt like I wrote one down. Oh yes, organizations with highly connected people see improvement of productivity by 20 to 25%. So that's again, I like to say slowing down to speed up. You're making fewer mistakes, or your staff is making fewer mistakes, or there's less inconsistencies. Then you'll see the productivity, and when you're more productive, you're more efficient, you make more money, right?
Sandi, excellent point. And quick shout out from Alan Holdren. Sandi knows her stuff.
Big Al, thank you for coming on, man. That's awesome.
So Alan Holdren, thank you for tuning in. And another shout out from Dr. Heimer. Great to see you, Dr. Heimer. Thank you for tuning in.
That's
Great
awesome.
to see you. And then one more statistic that I'd like to share before we take a deeper dive in. This is from HR Vision. And according to HR Vision, 51% of workers report higher stress due to unclear communication, and many report lower productivity and strained relationships with coworkers. Sandi, your thoughts?
Absolutely. It's like if you go into work, it's like I'll ask my clients, especially when there's been changeover, or just I know there's things going on in the company. I'll ask everyone that I'm working with, how do you feel when you walk in the door? How do you feel when you leave? And if you're feeling that anxiety and that stress when you're just driving up to get to work, or even on your way, then there's a problem. And if you're feeling exhausted but excited to leave, that's the problem. So we've got to learn how to work through that. So you and communication is a lot of it. You don't know what's going to hit you that day. You don't know what the boss is going to be like. You don't know if your staff is going to show up and how they're going to show up. It's hard to say, check your shit at the door. It's hard, but you do have to, and just work through that. But that all breaks down to communication, how you're communicating, and the communication leads to the mistakes, productivity, and efficiencies, all that stuff.
Sandi, excellent point. And let's move on and take a deeper dive. Sandi, tell us about your journey. What gave you the inspiration into this world, and how did you discover that most business problems are not strategy problems after all? They're communication problems.
Well, I guess my own communication problems. I looked in the mirror, I wasn't communicating effectively with when I had a job, and you could feel that tension. And I'm a high D on the DISC profile. I'm a DI, so I'm a general that likes to have fun. And if it wasn't fun or my idea, then I didn't want to do it, and I would tell you about it. So I might have been fired from my job, and that was probably communication on all ends. We were butting heads. We were talking at each other because most owners tend to be high Ds, and we're us high Ds. We just like to get to the point, get things done, and get it moving. And then starting my first business, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. I'm working for myself. But then I had to work with, I had to hire staff, or even interns, contract employees, vendors, clients. What am I going to do? Tell the client they're wrong most of the time? Now I get to, because that's what they want. They don't like it, but they're paying me to tell them the truth. Whereas prior, when I had my marketing firm, if I'm designing a brand or a website or a strategy for them, they didn't like it if I didn't like it if they told me they didn't like what they saw, and then you just get back into it. So I really had to look in the mirror and go, okay, what's going on here? And one of my friends trained disc profile, and he with disc assessment, I guess it gets labeled as a profile, but it's assessment. And I'd hired him to come and do a workshop, and it was so much fun. And I learned a lot. I really learned a lot. And I got kind of geeked out on it. I started researching that and digging into that. And then one time, and this is shout out to Rob Jackson. I don't know that he's on here, but he's back in Indianapolis, and he called me and he's like, hey, he had a family emergency and he had a workshop set up. And he's like, I can't do this, but this is a great client. You've seen it happen once. I've seen him do this once. He's like, I believe in you. And I went and did the team building workshop. We trained on disc. We used disc in fun activities. And I was sold. I wanted to do it. So then I started traveling around and doing it. And then I brought that into, once I guess transferred from doing my marketing firm to coaching, so I could help people on that strategy side. That I just really brought that in. I was like, okay, I need to know who everyone is I'm talking to and teach them who they are. And then, so here we are, 14 years later.
Sandy, thank you for sharing your journey. And I was curious, could you tell us more about how DISC gave you a better understanding of communication?
Well, just learning, just a quick overview for those of you who are listening who aren't familiar with DISC, or maybe are, but DISC, like the D is the dominance one. You want bullet points, you want quick information, you want action, immediate action. I is the influencer. These are the chatty Cathys, the people that are going to, want to talk about the weekend, want to know what everybody's weekend was like, what their family's doing. When I'm in high I mode, eyes are the ones that can get you off task and get your agenda and time blown out the window. But we're the fun ones. We're going to get everybody ramped up and feel like a family. And then S is the steadiness. Oh gosh, God love you for I have 2 in my S category. So those are the caring people, the ones that will stay forever, go down with the ship. They just will bleed whatever color you are bleeding and just are the glue, right? And then C, you guys are the ones that want statistics. You're the ones that are always asking why, because they need the information to make the project, the company, whatever it is you're working together on successful. Because you can't just go run amok, with a big idea without the research and statistics and knowing the direction you're going to go. So does that answer your question? Sorry.
It does. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Sandy. And let's take a deeper dive into the value of addressing communication gaps and communication problems. Let's talk about why, from your perspective, I know you covered a lot of it earlier, but why is it important for leaders to really pay more attention to overcoming communication problems?
Well, leaders, don't you want to be less frustrated with your staff? So, once you learn how to communicate and everybody learns how to communicate with you, then there is going to be that less frustration, less mistakes, just all the same things that we've talked about. It's like, it's just, you're still not going to be one big happy family every single day. There's still going to be things that you have to fix, or mistakes, or an upset client here and there, but it's going to reduce drastically. And one of my companies I've worked with for probably about 12 years, we've seen that. We've seen the transition. There's 2 different departments, and it was constantly that divide of us and them, or they, pointing fingers. There's literally the department, or the 2 departments. There's a hallway, and from the front door down, and it divides the 2. And there was just such crazy divide. And we even, moved people around from one department to the other, and did a little bit of cross training. And it was not until I got in there and really started working with the the managers, the team leads, on breaking that down. Now, there are going to be some bad apples in there. You're going to not hire 100% every time, or somebody's going to get in there and be like, this isn't quite what I thought it was going to be as far as the job. We're not saying perfect communication or, better communication is going to solve the world's problems as far as staffing. But when you learn how to do that, like I would go in and one of the team leads would be like, okay, this is what I'm going to say. And she would literally, I taught her how to write it out. She would just type it up and she would read it to me. And I was like, no, I'm not going to say that. and it is a game. It's quite a game on just learning how to check a few words, understanding who you're talking with instead of talking at. That's the problem, is people talk at each other and they don't listen. And this is great advice for you at home as well. So learning how to talk at each other or talk to each other, not at each other, and listen instead of just ready to get your point across, especially when you have two D personalities in the house, man, you just want to talk. So, but that's the thing too, it's like going in and you could have just one of your staff people be a high D, and then everybody else is CS. And so they're the caring people and the detail people. And then, your leader comes in and just, those two are talking at each other and everybody's just sitting around like, what's going on? And then the high I wants to come in and just make everybody loved and feel loved. And it's like, and talk to where everybody forgets about everything. It's just, it can be chaos. So improved communication helps just smooth a lot of that over.
Sandy, that's an excellent point. And taking a deeper dive, let's reflect on our main topic again, and it's that most business problems are not strategy problems. Curious, Sandy, from your perspective, why do some leaders tend to go back to the habit of fixing strategy instead of addressing communication?
Oh, why do they? Well, why does anyone? It's bad habits. It's like I told a group the other day, I said, I'm like your personal trainer for your business. If you're making, a goal to lose weight or get in better shape or just get healthier, what happens if you get stressed out? You go for the donut, you go for the pizza, go for the nachos or the tacos, it's just, it's just, I don't want to say a trigger, but it's just a habit. It's a habit. So it's just learning how to find your triggers to catch yourself. I always, I would tell everyone on myself, if you hear me say that's not logical 3 times, then I need to stop because I'm just talking at people. I'm not listening. And so it's just really, you've got to understand who you are and then how you react under pressure and also how you react and act when things are great. Aren't we all a lot happier when things are great? When business is good, when staff is behaving and showing up, and we can solve all the world's problems. And then one day where shit goes sideways, we're like, see, should have just done it myself, and you'll go off on a rant and start like barking orders at people. Or if you're a high S, you'll retreat and not say a word to anybody and just be quiet. And that's not good either, because man, those high S's, they can just let them encourage them to talk because you don't want them to explode. No.
Sandy, excellent points. And curious to learn more. What do you think is the biggest communication mistake you see that leaders make when their businesses start to grow?
Really just not asking for anyone else's opinion. Not asking, which, there's a way to ask an opinion and still go around and get it done your way through proper communication. So it's just really just asking and then building that team. I'm doing a talk in Seattle with Dr. Jaime, actually. And it's about building a team for the future. And really it is about that. It's about just communicating more effectively, listening, asking, and understanding that it's not generational as much as we want to blame different generations. It's communication. It's learning how to talk and communicate with each other. And it's really just, that will solve all the world's problems. No, not really.
Excellent point, Sandy. And could you tell us more about the event in Seattle?
Yeah, it is Society of Marketing Professionals. SNPS is their acronym, and it's March 17th, 18th, and 19th, and I speak on the 19th, I believe. And it's really just, it's their Pacific Regional Conference, so it's mostly, I guess, those organizations, all the SMPS groups around, from like probably, well, Seattle, California, any of these states over here, this way on the West Coast and all that. And in that group, SMPS usually is the marketing arm of the, another acronym, AEC world, Architectural, Engineering, and Construction world. So those two work together, and those are two of the groups I've spoken at conferences the most and worked with the most.
You have an upcoming, your session, it sounds very exciting, and shout out to Dr. Jaime.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. It's
go
going
ahead.
to be fun. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. And curious to learn more. What are some of the early warning signs that communication problems are starting to hurt performance?
Oh, lost clients or customers, so slower sales, staff turnover. Those are the three biggies, because even if as a sole proprietor, or maybe one or two people, if your sales are down or you're not, like I said, losing customers, not getting those repeat customers, and you're wondering what's happened, it's always time to take a look in the mirror when anything is going wrong.
Sandy, that's an excellent point. And looking at the bigger picture, what does healthy communication look like in a high-performing company?
Well, people, even if you're laser focused and maybe it's a high-tech company where people are just head down, just working, you can still sense the tension. You can still see the productivity, better productivity, again, across the board. Does not matter what kind of company, whether it's you're talking, like communicating like a family or just like friends. I always say you don't have to be friends with the people you work with or like them. You just have to work well with them. Not everyone's going to go out for drinks or whatever on the weekends or after work, but it's a matter of, how are they performing together? So, it's just key, is just how does it feel when you walk in the door? And it's hard to ask a high D, assessment personality, how do you feel? Because there's those words as well. Think and feel, but that's part of my job, is really to get you to stop and go, how do I feel when I walk in this room? How do I feel when I'm leading a meeting or talking to people, and looking around, in meetings and seeing what are people doing while you're talking? What are you doing if someone else is leading the meeting and talking? Are you paying attention? Are you on your phone? Are you checking your silly Apple or Samsung watch? Are you fidgeting? Are you making notes? Are you actually paying attention? And vice versa, and watching the body language. You can do that on Zoom. I've done a training on Zoom, and that was interesting, because I called out the people in the little boxes. I was like, you're just here for the credits, aren't you? The CEs, because you have your camera off, or you are not paying attention, or you're looking away or down. So there's ways to do that, even if you're a virtual company.
Sandy, excellent perspectives. And I was curious, this idea of psychological safety, some I guess have talked about in the past when it comes to communication. What role does psychological safety play?
Wow, a lot. I mean, your mental state is everything. Like I said, when you walk in, if you're I don't care if you're the leader or not, wherever you are, if you don't, I would say, feel safe, or if you're not sure if you're going to be challenged or questioned, and that is because sometimes people do feel challenged and questioned, but that's not how it was meant, how the person meant it to come out. They just don't know how to communicate. effectively. So if you're constantly on edge because you don't know what or who's going to come at you that day, I guess that's where the psychological safety comes in. But when you feel comfortable sharing your opinion, doing your work, and not worrying about feeling like somebody's over your shoulder all the time, then you're in a good place.
Sandy, excellent insights. And if a leader wanted to improve communication inside their organization, what are things they should start doing?
Well, there's a lot of times people are like, oh, okay, let's do more training, let's do this. And, yes, here I am doing more DISC training and assessment. But, the whether it's DISC, Myers-Briggs does pretty much the same thing. I kind of leaned more towards DISC. There's people send out SMART goals, all the things, 360s, but DISC really gets in there and teaches you how, I'm not like getting some kickback from DISC just by saying that, but, that's the one that I am fluent in, and I see how it has really repaired organizations. I just did a training for a women's organization back in Indy. That's the women in the mechanical industry. And so there's the mechanical industry, but then there's the women's group that's part of that. And you had almost 30 people that are just working, trying to get together and do things. And I've also done this for an executive committee for a board, and they just weren't getting the votes they needed. They couldn't get things passed. And it's like they were just so caught up in what they wanted and what they said, their own agenda, versus going, you're on this board and this committee for the greater good of the organization. Get over yourself, but also communicate more effectively. And it was really cool to see and hear, because one was in person and one was on Zoom, like hear them go, oh my gosh, yeah, that's why you're always asking why, or that's why you kept asking for more information, because the high D was talking to a high C and they just weren't, giving each other what they needed. One just wanted to get things done, and the other one wanted to know the details to understand change, because C's and S's do not like change. They need to understand, they need to feel safe, and they need to understand where they're going and believe in that. And if you're just like, come on, but once you get all that working, then as a leader, an owner, or whatever, you can walk in and be like, all right, troops, we're rallying, we're riding at dawn. And because you've built that trust, they're going to ride at dawn. But until then, they're going to be like, no, not sure about this.
Sandy, excellent perspectives. And we do have a comment from Linda Salazar. Linda, thank you for tuning in. To your point, effective design of virtual meetings and trainings engages participants. It's preferable to calling them out. Sandy, wanted to get your perspectives.
Yeah. In my previous, before I got really into DISC, I just didn't mind calling people out. And I don't mind being called out. But yes, I did in that one meeting, just because that was part of the training, was to get them to understand how they're showing up in the meetings. And they needed to learn that, oh, I can't just turn my camera off. And this was sort of, we were a couple years in. I mean, we're all still messing up on Zoom and whatever virtual meetings, but at the early stages, they were really not understanding that, oh, this is what it means, when my camera's off, or, oh, this is what it means when I'm like looking around, like, what's going on here, that kind of thing. So it really is, yeah, you gotta and be engaged. And that's why any talk I've at any conference, 100, 200 people, my biggest team building, honestly, was 250. My biggest talk was 450. And I like to make it interactive. And I do that to keep people engaged, so they're not just getting talked at. And it doesn't matter if it's an internal meeting or you're going to a conference. The last thing you want to do at 4:00 on Thursday, because you've been talked at all day, is get talked at more. So that's where I like to come in and have a little fun with everybody. So,
Sandy, excellent insights. And quick shout out from Alan Holgren.
Love you, Al. I'll be back in May. I'll connect. We'll hook up. Not like hook. We'll connect and have coffee.
Excellent. And Sandy, as we wrap up, what's the best way for people to reach you should they want to learn more about you and the work you do?
Well, they can go to my website, which is badassbusiness.coach. And it has information on there about my individual coaching and also my speaking. I have a speaking tab. And if you just want more information and to set up like a 30-minute call and just say, hey, this is what's going on in my organization, whether it's a nonprofit like committee board or my company or whatever it is, just schedule that. And if you're looking to do lunch and learns or need a speaker for a conference, or I've done them for yearly meetings, like bringing everybody together once a year for like a sales meeting, or like franchisees, bring them together and just kick off, do something fun. I like to sneak in the educational without people really thinking they're there to get talked at and trained and all that. It's going to be fun.
Excellent. And Sandy, before we go, what is your final piece of wisdom for our audience?
Well, I guess there's a couple of them. It's like, well, one of the things I learned and is in my, I think it's my third book. It's like, if I'm going to say when shit goes sideways, there's no shortcut. There's no way around it. You just really have to work through it. You have to go through it to get to the other side. And that came to me when I was on a horse. The horse's name was Dusty. And Dusty stopped and was like we came up to this puddle. And I think I was like literally the last horse in this little trail. We were not out galloping, unfortunately, but it was fine. And it like literally this horse is like looking, I'm like, it's just a little mud puddle. But like the horse was going around and around. I mean, even when you're out walking around, I mean, if you don't want to go through a mud puddle, right? Get shoes dirty, whatever. But literally the horse finally, after about like 5 minutes in the there are people at the start and the end of this horse trail, right? He finally poked Dusty and Dusty had to go through it. And that was like, that's what we have to do in life as well. So sometimes just don't try to find the shortcut, the way around it. Just work through it. You got to go through it to get to the other side.
Sandy, excellent piece of wisdom. And to everyone out there, if you know any leaders who could benefit from this conversation, please feel free to share this with them. And Sandy, thank you again for today's conversation. Very insightful. Learned a lot about overcoming these communication obstacles. So honored again to have you on the show. And to everyone out there, thank you again for tuning in. I'll see you in the next episode.